Irrigation District Board of Directors for the purpose of water rates workshop. If you'll all join me to the salute to the flag, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Madam Secretary, you call the roll, please.
Here.
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 Here. Here. Okay. Who's going to kick this off? Jennifer? Okay.
So thank you for everybody for attending this evening. So this is the second workshop that the district is holding to discuss the implementation of the water rates for 2027. So as everybody is aware, the board of directors, they had adopted water rates after completing a Proposition 218 process for 2027 through 2031, right? 2032. And while they were adopting the rates, the adopting resolution had a set of what we refer to as guardrails included in them. And those guardrails are intended to serve as kind of a framework for setting an actual rate every year. So under Proposition 218, a public agency in California is required to complete a cost of service study and establish rates that are proportional to the cost to provide service to any specific customer class. So we have two primary customer classes, and that is irrigation water and treated water. Both of those customer classes were addressed separately within the cost of service study. There are some overlaps on shared expenditures for raw water. So raw water or irrigation water pays for only irrigation or raw water costs. And then treated water pays their fair share of raw water and an added cost on top for treated water. So after the rates were adopted and the Proposition 218 process was completed, the board had adopted their guardrails, which we'll review each one of the guardrails, and had made a commitment to our customers to hold two public workshops each year and then an actual formal board meeting to vote on the rate implementation for the following year. So our fiscal year runs from January 1st to December 31st. Per Proposition 218, the rates cannot be set at any higher than what was shown in the noticed rates that were included during the Proposition 218 process. So this will be the first year of rate implementation under that rate schedule. And the rates cannot, as I stated, exceed the notice rates. So this year we went through the finances and took into consideration several of the guardrails, and we are happy to be able to present to the board. And this is our second workshop, so the board, much of this is repeat from the previous meeting. We are presenting to the board a recommendation for lowered rates. Rates are lower than the Prop 218 noticed rates for 2027. I refer to this as an arbitrary lowering of rates because we are essentially using hydropower monies to offset them.
Jennifer, can I interrupt you just 1 second? I neglected to announce that this is a workshop, so it's a less formal meeting. So you can participate anytime, just jump up and start talking. But we ask that you come to the microphone and state your name. And this is a give and take, so we can discuss things less formally. So I just wanted to make that. So any question, anytime anybody's talking, just thank you.
So a couple of things to take note of is that when rates are lowered within year one, it does cause impacts for revenue collection throughout the entire rate period. So for example, when the board of directors made the determination to move the implementation date of the rates from July 1st of 2026 to January 1st of 2027, that move in itself resulted in a reduction of revenue that will be recovered. Any additional lowering of the rates does result in revenue collection being lowered over what was originally modeled through the rate process. So what that means is that we either have to when lower rates are implemented, we either have to utilize other revenues or we have to cut our expenditures, which would most likely be the capital program. And then what we're presenting today is consistent with the resolution that was passed. And this is a back and forth. So I know the board probably has already been through this. You might not have questions, but please interrupt me at any time, as well as the public. So the first rate adopting resolution guardrails, the board will set actual rate increases annually. So that is what we are doing. We're doing the workshops leading up to that. The rate setting meeting has been scheduled for August 6th at 9 a.m. Our regularly scheduled meeting on August 12th has been canceled and traditionally canceled due to the opening day of the Nevada County Fair. So that will be exciting. Our July 22nd workshop was completed, and now we are here today on July 28th. So one of the guardrails was to consider rate decreases separately for irrigation and treated water customers. And essentially what this means is that it's a commitment that each one of the customer classes will be treated differently as they are in the cost of service. So for example, if treated water had a very expensive treated water plant project, that raw water revenues would not be subsidizing those in any way. And the opposite is true as well. The second guardrail is to consider extraordinary revenue to decrease rates if possible. And this is actually a strategy that we are doing for 2027, and I'll explain that a little bit more. As well as this next one, which is consider rolling the 5-year unspent fund balance for the purpose of lowering rates. So what this means is that every year when we initiate the annual budgeting process, so the board typically hears and approves the budget kind of in the fall of each subsequent year. So they will start listening to the budget workshops kind of in September, October timeframe, with hoping to vote on annual budget in the November timeframe. When we are getting into budgeting, we are required to, in order to budget, we have to make projections based off of how much cash we will expend in the current fiscal year and how much cash we'll have left at the end of the fiscal year. So one of the things that recently changed is our 2025 annual audit was completed, and we did have excess revenue, more revenue than was originally projected in hydropower for 2025, as well as less expenditures. So the beginning fund balance for 2026, now that has been reconciled, is higher than originally predicted. And the ending fund balance is also higher, not only because of those excess revenues, but also because of decreased expenditures. So that is essentially what we're using for this proposal. Another one of the guardrails was to discuss the cost benefit of capital projects. And what this means, and we actually have a couple situations going on right now, is that there are capital projects that get put forth that may be very important, but are on very low kind of revenue generating areas, so that the cost to complete the project is very disproportional to the amount of revenue collected for those areas. So we will be looking at things like that. That is going to be completed during the annual budgeting process, not at this moment. There was also an ask to aggressively look for external revenue sources, which staff has been doing, and we did actually report out on our grant progress to date at the last regular board meeting. We have tentatively secured a $5 million grant for Scotts Flat Spillway, which is a large part driving a lot of the rate increases. And that we are entering into the negotiation phase with the federal government to fully secure that grant. It does look like we are going through the process. There's a little bit of volatility within the federal government grant programs right now, but we have our fingers crossed. We have a grant consultant on board, which Greg did a report out on the last board meeting. There are several opportunities. The largest opportunity for external revenue or funding sources will be from the Proposition 4 bonds that the state of California voters approved. We are gearing up to submit for that. The application process will not be open for another month or so. And then we'll be continuing to do internal grant update meetings. So we will do those at the board in the short term while we're kind of working through this. We'll be doing a monthly, and then we'll be doing them probably more on an every other month basis, because those grant programs do move very slow. So not all the time is there information to update the board about. And then as well, staff, we are having frequent internal updates on grants and where we're at, what we're going for, what assistance we need, what outside resources we need. And so stay tuned for report outs on those efforts. The last two guardrails, one was to do not spend unspent capital funds on unnecessary capital projects. So what this was intended to address, and I think this was a recommendation by Director Stevens, was that when we have excess capital funds related to underspending on any particular capital project, that we don't just backfill or spend those funds on projects that are not necessary. So we're not going to be focusing on, oh, that would be nice to have, or that would be nice to fix. But those projects really need to be projects that are critical to water supply, safety, or protection of some type of infrastructure. So we will be providing that analysis as we come through the annual budgeting process. So stay tuned to hear about that in the context of the projects we will be proposing for the 2027 capital budget, which will occur during the capital budget workshop upcoming. And then as well as the board directed staff to explore the development of an ag water efficiency grant program. So staff has initiated this effort, and as the board is aware, the board did approve the establishment of a stakeholder committee with the purpose of soliciting input on how best to develop some type of grant or assistance program that we can then implement to help the really high water users really save money on their water use. So the board each member of the board is going to be nominating two participants, and so they will have their nominations in on Friday. Once those are all in, then we will start reaching out to those stakeholders to start getting some meetings scheduled. So the 2027 proposed rates. So for the increased rates for 2027, we will be, kind of is a weird sentence here, but we will be decreasing the increase is what our proposal is. So, and we are doing that by utilizing excess revenue as well as utilizing excess fund balance that is available in hydropower. So we are recommending a 9% increase for year one in 2027. And there are two kind of fundamental differences in the framework for implementation of this decreased rate increase. And that is that treated water will be holding its allocation between the fixed and volumetric charge. And raw water will actually be, as we're recommending, a flat 9% increase for year one. And I'll kind of show you what that means as far as real numbers. Anyone have any questions?
Yes.
Carl, would you like to go up to the
microphone, please?
On the flat, I'm Carl McCosker, Nevada County Farm Bureau. On the flat 9% increase, is that excluding or including that adjustment of 5% that was added to raw water users to make them equal?
I believe you are referencing the 5% discount.
Correct.
Okay, so the 5% discount is taken into consideration outside of this process. So that 9% is a flat 9% for the 9% and related to the rates that were noticed in the Proposition 218 notice.
Okay, so a person that was paying the 5% by paying upfront will no longer have that available. So the flat 9% will actually be 14%.
Yeah, so the flat 9% is not available right now. And so one of the things, I think there's a lot of maybe a misunderstanding, or we might not articulate it very well, but the 9% discount, when you only have a subset of a customer class taking the 5% discount, that means the other people, the other irrigation users, would be paying more to offset that discount. So that's why we're not moving forward with it. So some people are being punished by it and some people are taking benefit for it.
So just so to be clear, if you were a person that was paying up front, your rate would not, and that is no longer available for 2027.
And it was not available for irrigation for 2026 either.
Okay, so that's no longer available.
Yep.
So if it was prior to this, then they would have a 14% increase this year because they are not getting the 5% off. Is that correct?
I wouldn't characterize it that way. I think you're mixing two things.
I am?
Yeah, you are.
Well, I don't think I am, but it's pretty simple to me. If I was for years and years have been paying up front, and then this year the board voted to discontinue that program, then my rate increase is not going to be 9%, but it's going to be 14% on your total bill. Yes or no?
From
Then
2026
or
no.
yeah.
So for 2026, the 5% discount has already
Was
been
already done.
removed.
So, okay,
Yeah.
let's go back to 2025 because we haven't had a rate increase since 2020, we think. So, yeah. So once again, if I was paying back in 2026 and got the decrease or got the break of 5%, and now I've moved into 2027, would my increase between 2026 and 2027 be 14% or would it be 9%?
If you're wanting to add those together, your math is correct.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Come to the microphone, please.
Dean Farquhar. I had talked earlier about out of district water. And I noticed that hasn't been addressed. And I had a question, before I get to that, I had a question, is the 9% on the fixed rate and on the water rate or just one or the other?
Yeah, I'll show you those, but it is across the board.
So in other words, the water rate is going up 9% and the fixed rate is going up 9%.
Yeah, let me pull up the rate schedule to look for
Later,
sure.
okay.
It's in the
Okay,
future.
now, on you said we were going to talk about what the rates are going to be for out of district customers, because the proposed rates are astronomical. I see that the first year, the rate increase is going to be 271% on the water.
So, sir, I believe you're talking about over the full 5-year rate period,
No,
just
that-
year one.
now the full 5-year period, the percent increase on the out of district water is 494%.
Yeah, out of district water was raised significantly. And as we talked about through the Prop 218 process, the reason why it was raised significantly is because out of district customers do not pay property tax into the district, as well as they do not own a portion of the hydropower system. So out of district customers, you pay the raw water rate, plus you pay to offset what you don't contribute in property tax and what you don't contribute in hydropower. Essentially, before, if we still utilized a formula that allowed out of district customers to take advantage of those two alternative revenue sources, you're essentially being subsidized by the folks that are in district and pay those.
True, but we've always paid the 25% additional charge. I thought that was to cover the fact that we weren't paying property taxes for NID.
It was intended to cover it, but was not a calculated percentage.
Okay, so is it possible that the first year it will go up 217%?
I just don't have that rate schedule in front of me.
That's the number that you guys supplied to me when you're.
In the notice?
Yeah. Now I know there's only 87 out of district customers, but that 1 inch, and they don't buy a lot of water. I think it was like 200. I looked at it's not a lot of water, but I'm restricted to 1 inch, and my neighbors are 1 inch, and they're for gardens and for sheep and an animal and what have you. And in 5 years, we're going to be paying $4,343 for 1 inch of water.
Sir, I apologize. I don't have that schedule in front of me.
Would you like to have it?
You know what? How about we talk about it offline and we can review it with you, unless the board has a comment.
It's got to be important to all 87 customers. That's outrageous.
Are you a out of district customer?
I'm both. I buy 12 inches in district and I buy 1 inch out of district. And the 1 inch that my neighbors buy, that's for gardens, for sheep, for an animal, for fire protection, what have you. But your own show that you're proposing at the end of 5 years, $4,300 for 1 inch of water.
Have you considered?
And compared to 1 inch of water in district is less than $2,000.
Have you considered joining the district?
Oh, had long conversations with Greg, and I desperately, in fact, in 1973, I joined the district, and we had to pay, and he said now they're proposing maybe down the road offering that opportunity. I've called several times asking about the possibility of joining. I've been with NID for 50 years, and I'm very happy with NID, by the way. The water is really clear this year. My ditch, I don't know what's happened. So it's been terrific. But these numbers to myself and my neighbors are astounding. And I'm sure that the other 87 out of district customers are quite concerned about $4,000 for an inch of water. That makes my vegetable garden pretty expensive. So you don't want to talk about it now. You want to talk about it later, or are you guys aware of that proposal of that amount of money for an inch of water? This is your document. So.
I have a question for you so that I can understand. You said you buy 12 inches in district.
Yes, and I
and 1 inch out of district.
Yes.
And then you talked about your neighbors' gardens.
My neighbors, I have.
Are you selling water to your neighbors?
No.
Oh, because some folks do that, and I just was.
They're out of district also. I'm in a little group of 10-acre parcels, and well, they're not all 10. I shouldn't say that. A group of people that are in an area that Greg probably knows more about this than I do, that are entitled to 1 inch of water due to the Railroad Act, and we happen to be.
Was this at Smartsville?
No, I believe that the gentleman lives in what we refer to as exclusionary items. So when the district was originally formed, there were numerous property owners that did not want to be part of the district, so they never paid into the original formation. Right. And so subsequently to that, they've never paid property taxes. I think one potential solution, so the reason why annexations have not been going forward right now is because historically the district has paid for the annexations. That is not a normal course of business for an entity to pay ourselves to annex you in for entity in for their own benefit, but it is to have the entity who wants to annex in pay for the annexation. In order to do that, we need to set up a new fee schedule, a new annexation process. So Greg and I have had some initial discussions. So hopefully we get something together to get you annexed in soon. Interestingly enough,
my ranch consisted of, until 2 years ago, out of district water and in district water. We bought 19 inches of water. 7 inches of that were out of district and 12 inches of that were in district. And the NID annexed part of my ranch, or our ranch, into the district. I think it was 2 years ago. Is that right, Greg, or 3? I'm not sure how long ago it was. And that was paid for by the district. Now, in 1973, I joined the district on my own. We had a drought then. I couldn't get any water unless I joined the district. And I did pay for it, and that's okay. So, but I'd rather be in the district and face a one-time, probably horrible fee.
Hopefully not.
It will be, because I think the annex in the district in 73 was like $7,000. That was horrible then.
Right.
For me.
The annexations can be complex and costly because of the coordination required with all the agencies that are involved, including the county as well as LAFCO. It has to do with how the tax sharing agreements work. But why don't we talk to you about line, and we will put our annexation project.
I'm taking too much time, but I have one question. Are we going to be able to address what myself and my neighbors are going to pay for 1 inch of water next year out of district? Will we ever know that, or not? Because we don't have that answer here tonight.
Yes.
Forgetting the annexation and all of that. No one seems to want to talk about that.
It's not that we don't want to talk about it. I think I was unclear about that was your specific question. So you will still be paying a increased rate But your base rate, which is based off of the noticed rates or what we're newly proposing, so you'll have some benefit, but it'll still be a higher rate. I just don't have it calculated in front of me.
Are you getting annual or summer water? What are you,
Pardon me?
are you getting annual water or summer water?
Summer water.
Okay, I'm looking at the rate schedules here, that this was
Right.
proposed
So
at a higher,
is-
12.5%.
My question is the out of district water for 1 inch next year going to be $1,560?
We don't know that because we haven't voted on it yet.
Is that,
That's August sixth, correct?
Correct.
is that a possibility? And then I know it's way beyond my,
Oh,
you're
you're,
fine.
you're fine. It is a possibility, but we'll have to, once we make the final proposal. I think some of the challenge and where my hesitancy comes in is these are one-off residential irrigation water customers, and then we have outside district municipal customers. So if we were to apply the flat 9% to that whole subset of outside district customers, we even have a greater revenue issue that I would have to go back and look at.
If this is a rates workshop, I think the gentleman has a fair question. If we are talking about some rates that we have the answers on the district rates, it'd be useful if you could get the answer on
Yes,
the
thank
out of
you.
district rates. If this is indeed a rate workshop, it would be useful to have the numbers.
okay. I would
For you.
appreciate it if you lady and gentlemen would consider that. So we would, myself and the other 86 people would know what that rate might be next year by August 6th.
I think
Seems like a
part,
fair question to me.
Pardon me?
I said it seems like a fair question.
Thank you.
I can just follow up on that real quick with you.
Apologize.
No, the document you have in front of you is the same one I have in front of me probably, and that was the notice was set out for maximum rates.
I understand that.
So we don't have a rate yet set for this year.
I understand that.
So let's give you an exact value right now. We would have to have already set the rate.
I'm not
Okay.
even asking for that. I'm just wanting everyone to be aware that these maximum amounts are really something.
Yeah, I think there's a little confusion. So the rate is set. The proposal we have brought forth is not to lower the outside district rates. If the board would like to do that, I will go through and
So the
calculate
paper
them.
that he has is correct.
Yes.
It is.
Oh, okay.
So
Same
that-
one.
I didn't
that's the
understand
number
that.
you're looking for. That is the number you're gonna
Yeah.
be paying. It seems like.
I would hope that my proposal would be flat 9% increase and they'll pay the 25%. But you're saying that's not enough?
No, the 25% add-on is no longer part of the proposed rates
So
add-on. or
I
the
don't even
notice.
recall having this discussion about outside. I don't remember the discussion. I'm sure it happened, but I don't remember it myself.
So
There-
the outside district rates are calculated differently now. Instead of an arbitrary 25% added on top, outside district pays a source water cost, which recovers the revenue associated with hydropower operating the upper division and offsetting what they do not contribute to property tax. So those rates are set higher. So for the purposes of this conversation, the outside district rates were not being proposed to be there's no proposal to move them down to 9% or put the 25% add-on back. That's not even part of the model anymore. So if the board would like to take consideration of lowering outside district rates, we would need to go back and do some calculations. There's some fairly significant revenue associated with the larger outside district municipal customers.
In order to do that, you also have a tax sharing agreement. Are you in Placer County?
Oh, yeah. I'm on Gold Hill, right next to your corporation yard.
Okay,
I run.
so it'd have to be redone, the tax sharing, or you would?
No, we have a tax sharing agreement, but we have to get agreement from the county to annex in. We have to get agreement from LAFCO to annex in. It's a more complex process that it's very bureaucratic.
Right.
Interestingly enough, on my $1,000 bill for my water, 1 inch roughly, that's 25%, I pay a premium of $250. And I can't imagine that my tax bill would increase by $250 if I was in the district.
It's the hydropower revenue.
I don't
The
understand. that.
hydropower, so hydropower revenue is utilized to pay for the movement of water through the entire upper division, moving water all the way from the high Sierras down into Scotts Flat and Rollins Lake. That's all paid for by hydropower revenue. Rates for in-district customers do not recoup any costs associated with all of that work and all of those dams. It's extremely expensive. The hydropower system is owned in public trust by our ratepayers.
Oh, okay.
So as an outside district person, you're not a technical owner of the hydropower system. So instead of having the arbitrary 25% add-on, we now recoup what is not paid in property tax, as well as you do not get the benefit of hydropower revenue.
Okay. Thank you for your time.
You're welcome.
Oh, you're all good.
You're good, you're good.
I learned a lot, thanks.
Couple more conversations, we'll get it. Yeah. I think the best solution is to get you annexed
Get you
in.
in the district. Ian. Yes.
Can you be here? You'll be there on August 6th? Will you be at the meeting on August 6th? It'd be at 9 a.m. at Grass Valley.
Okay. So we've talked about this, as I stated, many of the monies that we are using are related to information with the final 2025 audit completed. So at the end of a fiscal year, we do many adjustments that we can only do at the end of the fiscal year. And that is when those numbers kind of really shift. That's why we always say, don't pay attention to the fourth quarter financials. They will change by the time the audit comes through. So what this slide is showing is that this reduction of kind of this 9% from a 12.5 down to a 9%, it will result in a total lost revenue of $8.6 million over the 5 years. But this needs to be caveated. So the only rate that the board will be voting on is for 2027. So that's about 1.2 million. 28, 29, 30, and 31 numbers that are shown are estimates. And what those are based on is a flat 12.5 going forward, 28, 29, 30, 31. If we went back to the noticed rates and not a flat 12.5 increase, the jump between 27 and 28 would be like 18.5%. And so for the purposes of making it more reasonable, a more reasonable proposal, this is what we are showing. If the board were to decide to go to the noticed rates or lower than 12.5, this total would be different. So if you go to the noticed rates, the total is much less of excess revenue we need to offset. If you were to go lower than 12.5%, then these numbers are obviously higher. So this is just to show you, we went through this in detail at the last meeting. So what this is this is the fund balance sheet. So this is what we typically utilize for budgeting purposes, and the board sees this table all the time throughout budgeting. And so in the left-hand corner is the fund, or left-hand column is the fund, the second column is the fund name. And then what the next column of numbers is showing is the beginning fund balance. So that is what we are projecting to be the beginning fund balance. So these are for 2026. So when we adopted the budget for 2026, the beginning fund balance was completely projected numbers. We then do a projected ending fund balance. So at this time of the year, we go through and we look at how capital projects are going, whether funds are going to be expended, whether the projects are going to need to be rolled over, and also what revenue is coming in. With the 2025 audit being completed, I've gone through and updated the beginning fund balance for 2026 to actual numbers. And so what this is showing you is that there is an increase in some of the fund balances. So what this is also showing you is that for Fund 10, the water fund, which is the primary operating fund that the ratepayers pay into, the beginning fund balance in 2026 and the ending fund balance show that we are spending more money than we are receiving in revenues just for operations. So there is a minor change in the fund balance projections for Fund 10. Fund 12 capacity fees, those are legally restricted fees that can only be used for new capacity type projects. They are paid by new connections to the system. The Water Capital Improvement Fund is a sub-fund of Fund 10. So Fund 10 is the parent fund, and it indicates what projects we'll be spending for the year. So this is essentially showing that we have a $2 million increase in our projected ending balance. And that's primarily related to unspent capital expenditures from the prior year. Cement Hill Assessment District and Rodeo Flat Assessment District, those are legally restricted funds. They're related to special benefit assessment districts that cannot be used for any other purpose. Recreation Capital Fund is a function of recreation. That's Fund 30 and Fund 35. Recreation is highly subsidized on an annual basis by hydropower revenue. It costs more to run and operate and maintain the campgrounds than the revenues we bring in. Fund 50 is the hydroelectric fund, which is an operating fund, and Fund 55 is a hydro capital fund. So that's where you're seeing the big increases in available cash to be able to kind of buy these rates down as proposed. Internal Services Fund is it's a cost allocated fund that holds all of the administrative expenditures, and each one of the operating funds pays its fair share per a cost allocation formula on an annual basis, and those monies are transferred in and out of the fund. The idea for Fund 70 is it essentially zeroes out each year. So whatever money it doesn't spend, it goes back to its operating fund that contributed it. And then Fund 85 is also legally restricted. That is a pension trust fund that was established by the board to continue to pay down the unfunded accrued liability associated with retiree pensions. Any questions? All right, so essentially how I'm proposing to fund this reduced rate increase is by transferring funds in from Fund 50, the operating fund. We could just as easily transfer them in from both Fund 50 and Fund 55. Fund 50 does have excess revenues associated with it. And all it does is it saves a little bit of accounting because on an annual basis, we transfer money from each one of the 3 operating funds to its associated capital fund, and an amount equal to that fund's annual capital expenditures for that year. So none of these, the only transfer that would be completed in 2027 is this 1.2 million. Future transfers would be made after the board provides input on future rates. So these would be the new proposed treated water rates. And as we just had the long discussion with outside district, we were not proposing to reduce outside district rates. The board has the authority to do that if you would so like to. There would be a very large revenue hit if we were going to be applying the reduced rates to outside district municipal customers.
Jen, real quick on that.
Yes, sir.
Outside municipal, that's versus outside raw. Is that what we're talking about? Or are we talking raw versus treated?
No, it's water that is sold under larger contracts. So it would be Grass Valley and Nevada City. We also sell water to PCWA, but they wheel water to the city of Lincoln for the portion of the city of Lincoln that is within district, and we do collect property tax from. So these would be the proposed water rates. So it shows you what is existing in 2026 and then what would be projected in 2027 for both fixed and volumetric. And that was about the end of the presentation. I know we have seen this before, but if this jogged any additional questions, please let us know.
You go first?
Go first.
Yes, go right.
So basically, I like the fact that the guardrails have been implemented. I like the fact that we are pushing staff to go after the grants, to look at new and hopefully exciting ways of generating additional revenue.
Even mundane would be okay.
Mundane would be okay, yeah.
But we're having to think outside the box, and we're taking a little bit of a eight ball approach this year and saying that if we use hydro revenue next year, we can maybe use twice as much because a certain project gets pushed off, and one of the guardrails is if it gets pushed out, that money is available to reduce the rates. We're kind of caught in a quandary here because there's somebody in the audience here by the name of Joe Fishers who's taught me a lot of these things about interest rates and CPI and things of that nature, and how if you add it to it each year. Joe's asked me to ask every single person I run across how much water they use and how hard this would hurt them, and it's helped me greatly, and I appreciate it. If we were to enact 9% rate increase here and equate that to what we did not do, this board did not do when I was not part of it, for the last 6 years, there's been a 1.5% increase per year for 6 years, for 9%. Am I correct, Joe?
It'd be a little different.
Yep, so 1.47 or something like that.
Or
But so
compound.
so by not even keeping up with the cost of the consumer price index, the rate of inflation, if we did enact a 9% this year, we would not even have caught up to that rate of inflation. I decided to go one farther from that, and I said, okay, if we were to calculate the amount of a one-time rate increase that we would need if we did apply the CPI for every year we did not have a rate increase, we would have to do a 27.8% increase this year, equal what the CPI has been, which is brutal. That's why you can't go to Applebee's anymore and buy a meal for a family of 4, because things have gone up that much. So I do like the fact that staff has hopefully reined in some things, kept a tight rein on things, found money, things of that nature. I'm kind of appalled that things have got that expensive, but we have to take care of our infrastructure. If we don't and it fails, we're not delivering water to anybody. And we deliver good quality, high quality, reliable water, and we want to keep that up. One of the things that I've learned I have a very, and I've said this before, a very forward facing business. Agritourism, I grow mandarins and pumpkins and have a brewery and a winery. And I have a lot of people come in. I talk to hundreds of people. And during this whole thing, everyone wanted to talk to me, which was fine. And I learned a lot, and things were good. And I kind of just broke this down into 3 classes, if you will, of people. And how do we help? I'm sorry, this is for the raw water users. Excuse me. How do we help those people? And because they are our customers. We've got roughly 50 large water users. We've got roughly 4,000 medium water users. We've got 21,000 roughly small water users. And we also have a couple water users, LNS, that use water at different times of the year and out of season. So how do we take care of that? And that's one of the reasons for the workshop that I requested as part of the guardrails. And I think it's going to be very useful. But the 50 or so large water users are basically in Brad and my district or division. And if we can, and I don't want to be misquoted on this, if we can get those 50 or so users to use 10% less water, that drops their bill by 10%. Or if they use the same amount of water and produce 10% more product, that reduces their overall bill also. So how do we get those guys more efficient? And that's one of the things I'm hoping to work out in this ag workshop. And I mean, there's lots of things we might be able to do. Somebody mentioned gated pipe at a wholesale level. Somebody mentioned mulch applications. Somebody mentioned a change in regulations to, you need that water at certain times. No, not Carl, but Ellen behind you. So I think if we work on those, we have another 4,000 people that are having trouble. This bill increase is going to hurt them. Not going to kill them or like you would for some of the large water users, but it's painful. How do we help that group of people? We're not allowed to use Prop 218 money to do this sort of stuff. but we might be able to find another way to shift things around to help these people. Then you have another 21,000 people or so. I'm in that category. I have 100 permits and approvals on my property. A lot of them renew every year. Most of them renew, not most of them, but a large percentage renew more than what my PG&E or not, my NID bill is going to be for 5 minors inches. So yes, the NID increase is painful, but Placer County Environmental Health, Regional Water Quality Control Board, pesticide application, on and on and on. They're all much more painful than, not pesticide, but a lot of them are much more painful than the NID is. So I'm looking at this as how do we help the general class of everybody? We can use hydro to bring them down to a point where it's painful but survivable as we push staff to get more creative with grants and removing unfunded mandates and things of that nature. And then look at the 4,000. How do we help that group doing things and how do we help the 50? So I'm open to suggestions. I think the ag water workshop, if I pronounce that correctly. I know
You're supposed to make an acronym.
I know I'm supposed to make a nice TLA 3-letter acronym for it, but I haven't come up with that yet. But I hope that will really help and get us past this difficult time. So I'm all ears and I'd love to hear any feedback.
Thank you, Director Stevens. Other comments?
My turn.
Your turn.
Thank you, Director Stevens. I really appreciate Mr. Farquhar, your testimony or your comments today. I'm kind of like you, Chris. I don't think we tuned in to use a word
Right.
into those out
I
of district
did not.
customers.
I did.
I know I didn't into the out of area customers. And so I'm interested, Jennifer, in tuning in to what that is. We may all arrive at the same conclusion. I don't know whether we would or we wouldn't.
I think it was just caught up in the larger conversation about the in-district customers, but it was talked about extensively.
Well, I'm not saying it wasn't talked about, but I never quite put the gravity of what this gentleman brought forward to, to the bigger discussion. So
I guess another way to put it is that to lower their rates, we would be subsidizing their rates with property tax our ratepayers pay and the hydropower system revenue, which they don't own.
I'm hearing that, and I understand we have some legal restrictions and fairness restrictions and all those kinds of things, and I'm not saying I feel one way or the other than I feel like it deserves maybe a little more focused discussion than I recall us having. That's all. So
I feel that there was a robust discussion.
maybe there
I'm
was.
happy
Did
to
I
bring
miss
it
it?
back.
I've been here at all these meetings.
No, I remember it.
You do remember it. Okay.
I'm with you.
You-
I do not recall if we discussed it, I was not tuned in, as you said.
I was not as tuned
the
in
out of
to that.
district.
I really wasn't. I know I wasn't.
I admit I'm less sensitive to the out of district customers. I think the best answer is to come into the district.
And in fact, multiple times the board, this was discussed and the board did indicate that they were okay with it. And that in fact, I think Director Fowler actually said they shouldn't be getting benefit of. property.
Right, and
Something else.
I would agree, in principle, that benefit of the property taxes should not be taken advantage of, not that you are, sir, but just in general. But I just sort of feel like we didn't tune in, or maybe I didn't tune in.
Right.
Director Fowler said he didn't tune in. Chris said he hasn't tuned in. I don't know about anybody else, but
So Ricky, here was the conversation. And you and I are both on LAFCO
Right.
in Nevada County. The 25% was not cutting the cost.
It
What that-
wasn't collecting.
it wasn't collecting
It
a
was not
sufficient
collecting
revenue.
And the Prop
Right.
218 process allowed a deep dive into the real costs of what it takes to supply someone who's not paying the property taxes, not
Mhm.
being part of the district. And that is what came up. And is it a strong number? Yes. Is it unrealistic and made up? No. It's not. It is what it is. Now, is that incentive to join the NID, district? I would hope so, but therein lies some problems to it. There's a sequence. You got to get into the process to make that happen. NID can't just go out and do it all at once. If I'm reading the tea leaves right, it takes a lot of effort on everyone's part. Should you talk to Greg and everybody again? Yes, absolutely. Let's don't lose this moment. And how long did it take the last one? Several years, right?
I want to say,
No,
No, it takes about 6 to 8 months.
6 to 8 months.
All right, well, I mean, to me, that's fine. That's better than some of my 80 birthday card said. So that's some fun ones. Yeah, I mean, it's all doable. Let's just keep the conversation going because I think it was a true number as far as I know that represents our costs that are not being paid. And yeah.
There's a significant amount of money that is paid to operate the upper division.
Mhm.
And without the benefit of those revenues, the cost is much, much higher. And in fact, if we didn't have hydropower, all irrigation rates would be that high.
Mhm.
So I think from the perspective as to whether we talked about it or not, we did. We had multiple conversations. I think where if during the process, if the board wanted to continue to charge the arbitrary 25%, which was under collecting, it would have increased all in-district customers.
Mhm.
So I think that was the feedback.
Right, I guess all I'm saying is, I think you were correct. The conversation around out-of-district customers just kind of got folded into the bigger, and it got lost for me until this very moment when this gentleman came forward. And so all I'm asking is that we just take another look at it with us all kind of tuning in to the
Well, what
issue.
we could do is we can bring back a complete separate item. We can talk about it. But, we could arbitrarily lower those as well. I need to look at some legal aspects of how we would do that.
Understood.
Yeah,
There
if I
is-
can jump in here, there are some legal issues that we need to consider offline. And absolutely we can do that and then bring it back to you as a board for discussion. But there's definitely legal issues that we need to consider before you reduce what is the true cost of service to these particular customers.
Understood. I get that.
Yeah.
And I'm not suggesting that we just arbitrarily reduce. I'm just saying, let's look at it and
Okay, how-
remind
how-
ourselves what we're doing with regard to the outside district.
How long would that take?
To bring them back?
Yes.
Not long. I mean, the question really is a question of legality. What are you going to use to buy, what funds would you use to reduce them without getting in legal jeopardy? Because the cost, the 25% prior
Mhm.
was, it's an arbitrary number. This is a
Understood.
calculated number.
Yeah,
So without collecting those revenues, there's no way to bifurcate out and say, we're not going to do this project. It's just for the out of district customers.
Mhm.
And it does get much more complex. The small number of kind of island customers
Mhm.
is one thing. It's the larger municipal customers
right,
that the
right.
that the
And-
cities pay for.
Yeah, I
They
know.
buy water under contract, so they're not Prop 218 noticed.
Got it. So, I guess my sense to you, Mr. Farquhar, is this may not get any better than the piece of paper that you're having in your hand. All I'm suggesting is that we just as a board just kind of set another set of eyes on it again. And do we need another item? I don't know. That's up for the board to decide.
Okay.
So,
Wayne.
Mr. Vineyard, go ahead.
I'm Wayne Vineyard. I might shed a little history on this. What are you talking about, the revenue that the power paying for? Back before the project in the 60s, when they built the new dams and everything, we as ratepayers had to pay for the water to get out of the mountain because there was no power. So we paid for all the extra cost bringing the water down to us. after 1960 or 65, when the dams got done, the revenue from the power paid for all the water delivered down to where we start using it down here. And they paid off the bonds. And then that's where it gets a little sticky. When the NID sold the bonds and not sold the bonds, tried to get the voters to pass so we could sell the bonds, they said there was revenue bonds, which was pretty new in that days, and it wouldn't cost us anything because the revenue from the power would pay for the bonds. And when the bonds was paid off, the revenue from the hydropower would pay for all the water delivery to the delivery system down in the lower Placer and Nevada County. Plus, the extra revenue from the power was to go towards keeping our water affordable. That was in the minutes. You looked it up when I was on the water rate board about 15 years ago. I got $4 million out of you guys. And that, because you had an 8% increase you wanted, and I said, hey, you paid the bonds off, that money's supposed to be put in to help keep the water affordable. And you went back and looked in the minutes and found it, and then you said you gave us $4 million, so you only made 5%. And then in the next meeting, so you found it was the headlines in the Auburn Journal paper, where NID said that the revenue is going to help keep the water cost. But this is that cost you're talking about. That revenue, bring the out of district is paying for that. That's bringing our water free at the source where we start using it. So that, I think that might kind of clear that up a
And
little
that's
bit.
correct. So at the time of the bond issuance to build the primary hydropower project, it was, voted on by the ratepayers, and that debt service was paid by the ratepayers. So that's where this whole question comes into: what can you use what is owned by the ratepayers for non-ratepayers? And that's where some of the challenges are.
Got it.
One more thing, we argued years ago, the out of district users paid less for the water than we did. NID declared it surplus, and they sold Zone 5 now with Placer County Water Agency sells down there to Moore Brothers and Burt Lefty in those area. They bought water less per inch than we had to pay for it. And we fought and say, hey, they shouldn't, you got surplus water, sell it to us in the district, cheaper. We'd buy more. And then pretty soon they paid the same. But for years they paid less water than we did, less per inch of water.
Yeah. And that's currently, that's what happens if the out of district customers don't pay an amount that recovers what they don't pay in property tax and what they don't pay in hydropower revenue, they are paying less for water than our in-district customers.
Right. I got that.
Go ahead.
No, I think it's all been said.
Okay.
Brad?
Director Fowler?
So as regarding the out of district customers, if that's the rate, if that's the cost of water without the benefit of hydro. Unfortunately, that's the cost of water without the benefit of hydro, is my understanding. And so the best answer is to come into the district, as far as I can tell. That's a lot of money to pay for water, and I sympathize with that, but that should be further incentive to come into the district. The only question I have, and I keep going back to this, just in my head, as these water rates go up, especially on the 50 customers or the 4,000 that it's hurtful to, or to, I think you said something to that effect. Are they going to use less water as a result of these rates? And then because they use less water, our revenue goes down, and then we have to raise rates on the remaining customers, and then it just spirals until we don't sell raw water anymore. And that's a simplified picture, but that's something that I can see that is possible, and it does affect largely myself and my neighbors. And at what point does it not become cost effective to deliver water when all my neighbors just say we're going to buy half, and now it doesn't even make sense to run water in these canals? So I don't know how attrition plays into this. And Rich apparently has the answer for me. So I should have asked him before the meeting.
Right. So in response, it's a great question and always a concern if you think you're going to have a dip in revenue. We are not projecting or anticipating that we are. We went back and looked at water sales during the last rate increase. And during the last rate increase was adopted for a 3-year period. In year 3 of the rate increase, we had the highest water sales we've ever had. And we also have quite a number of new folks wanting to come on to the system. So although I do think, I think it's very important for a lot of reasons, but if folks are large water users are wanting to reduce costs, I am not overly concerned about a huge revenue hit because I do think we're going to continue to see our water sales increase on the historical projection that they have been. Now, if we're wrong, right, that would be a conversation to have. We have not historically seen that happen. We have several waiting lists on several canals. What I do think is really important also is that some of our push for water conservation with some of the larger users is also to assist those specific customers in periods of multiple dry years. We've been very fortunate, for the past 20 years to not have to implement any mandatory draconian conservation requirements on our customers. It's typically we implement our drought water contingency plan on this voluntary basis. But as time goes on and regulations become more and more strict, and in fact, just today, I was looking at some additional modeling we had to complete for our new FERC license and in-stream flows. There could be multiple years of drought. So it would behoove our customers themselves to become a little bit more water efficient if their system isn't currently efficient, which would not only save them money now, but would also help them get through some of those harder times, whether it's ponds or what can we do to help facilitate that? And I think that was the purpose of the requested Ag Water Efficiency Committee.
Rich.
So I guess to answer Brad, there's 2 scenarios that I've seen. One, if water sales go down, then every delivery system is at a cost benefit analysis. Is it cost us more to deliver water down that canal or wherever than we're receiving? So service could be curtailed. You cut back on your expenses. What I've really experienced, and I've done it myself, is that the more efficient I became in my irrigation practices, going from flood to furrow to impact sprinklers to micro sprinklers to drip irrigation, I'll farm more land. I get more productive. That amount of water allows me to grow a lot more produce or expand the operations. So I'm starting to make money. And yeah, was it painful coming up with that money to make all those changes throughout the decades? Yeah. I mean, it's in the hundreds of thousands, but it has paid off. It has absolutely paid off. And it has allowed us to be in the position we are today because we made that. And even I go, geez, ouch. How can I afford an irrigation system that costs maybe 2-3 times what it cost me 20 years ago? And then I look at the money not worth anything and I go, how can I not do it? You have to do it. Water is key to everything we do and people.
And I think what I really like what you just referenced, I think it's going to be key to keep in mind in our Ag Efficiency Committee is that success of that program is not just based off of water use reduced. It could also be based off of productivity and efficiency increased. So, if our customers can use the same amount of water and farm more acreage, the efficiency of the water use has increased. And so I think that really needs to be in the metric. It's not just reduce water. It could be increase efficiency.
And productivity.
Well, as I see it, I'm not trying to belittle anything. I think Brad, you even said, well, if I get more efficient, I'm gonna farm more of my land.
Right, yeah, well, if I could, yeah,
And,
I'd be happy to irrigate twice as many acres.
and if we could, Placer County, as I've said this before, when I was on the Ag Commission, we put together that, requirement that if you divide land in Placer County, they gotta divide the water rights up amongst any new parcel and access to them to get rid of some of these islands, these drought islands. And that was very productive and I think very useful for fire protection and for sustainable agriculture. But if we also have people are either going to produce the same amount or with the less water, and that water is able to be sold to a neighbor and they can bring their land up into irrigation also. I'm not looking for I'm trying to say, yes, the rate increase is a problem, but there's also another underlying thing. If we had 0 rate increase this year, I think we should still be looking at this as a way of making the counties greener, more productive, less fire, etc. I think it's two-pronged, so I don't mean it as a negative. I see it as a positive.
All right, that make it my turn? Okay. Yes, sir, go ahead. That's what we're here for.
Mr. Fowler made a comment about paying the amount that it costs to deliver the water to the out of district customers, and that we should join the district. But I think that, as I pointed out, next year, we're going to be faced with a 400% increase from $400 to $1,600. I think it should be incumbent upon NID to have a plan for us. You said join the district, but there's no plan. No one has reached out to those 87 out of district customers to say, hey, you're going to be faced with a horrible increase, but we have an idea for you. It's just sort of like, well, join the district. There's no plan or no method to do that right now.
It sounds like you're gonna be the head of the committee.
No, I'm not. But I think that it's important that the few of us, the 87 of us, have an option to join the district if we're going to have to go to this big rate increase and not just sort of have it out there like join the district.
Yes, sir. I take that to heart and I think that's something that we can move forward with. I think
Okay.
maybe putting together some kind of a plan or at least finding out what it takes to build the plan.
You're committed to that?
Yes, sir. And you can hold me to that. You know how to get in touch with me.
Yeah, we can commit to bringing something. The challenge we need to work through is how the annexations are paid for. So we need to set up, and because they're one-offs in island areas, it's more difficult than calculating it as you would for a new development or something.
Right.
Give us, I don't know, what do you think? Maybe October to come up with a plan? We come up with something.
Some
We're going to meet the
ideas, so-
board to adopt a fee schedule.
I think it's important excuse me, 1 second, to a follow through that this benefits the outside district customer, doesn't benefit the NID except we're selling water. Okay. So it's kind of we've been at this is my 8th year on the board. We've had a lot of discussions about outside district water and the property tax comes down to the sticking point most of the time, but it's also a complicated process. And so while we're sympathetic, the situation, it's who really benefits from it, right? And that's the way I'm looking at it. That sounds harsh, okay, from the board standpoint, but the reality is that. Yep.
We needed to wait 1 more year. Boom. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna add one thing.
Go ahead.
The infrastructure is already in. Infrastructure. You're getting water. Yeah. So one less thing to worry about.
Right. Go ahead, sir.
Before you give your finalization, I had a couple of questions. My name's Greg Lawley and my wife and I have 40 acres in Lincoln that we've bought water since 1986. First of all, I'd like to thank the board for holding these workshops. I think it's very productive and very informative to us as customers of yours. I have a couple of probably more questions than I have points to make, but my first question I'd like to address is you mentioned Fund 50 and I must have missed it because I don't know what Fund 50 is.
I apologize for that, sir, and always stop me if I'm speaking nonsense code. So Fund 50 is the hydroelectric fund. So as a public agency, all public agencies, we essentially hold all of our money in one giant bucket, and then each bucket, within that bucket, there's a layer, and each layer of money belongs to a specific fund. Each fund has its own legal restrictions for how those monies are used.
Okay.
So Fund 10 is a water fund. It's a main operating fund. Fund 30 is an operating fund. It's the recreation operating fund. And then Fund 50
Okay,
is the
I do remember
hydropower.
saying, I just didn't realize what Fund 50 was when it came up on the next screen.
Yeah, I apologize.
Oh, no
for that.
problem.
I'd like to make one point about hydro fund. There's a lot of money in there. Hydro was all put in about 60 years ago. It's aged.
Sure.
It has to be replaced. And that's why we're trying to save as much money to do all that replacement so hydro can continue generating the revenues it has.
Okay, very good. You had mentioned you have a waiting list of customers, and my question, I guess, would be, are those customers mainly agricultural people, recreational people, landscaping people, or are they a variety of people?
Chip might know more than me. I would assume they're lawn and pond, but Chip.
Yeah, I would say the majority of them are a lot of lawn and pond and irrigation, but we don't really discriminate. Raw water, it is what it
It's
is.
just raw
Yeah.
water. Okay,
Yeah.
all right. I also was wondering, I noticed that there was a previous workshop, and I was wondering if there could be a recap of what transpired in that workshop.
The previous workshop was exactly the same as this workshop. There were definitely different questions that were asked, and also different folks were in the audience, but all of our meetings are videoed and you can access it online if you wanted to watch it directly. And then they're somewhat summarized in the meeting minutes if you'd find that helpful too.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
All right, very good. A couple of other things that I would like to address is I've heard rumblings in my area that with the 100-degree days coming, that there may be a shortage of water in some of the ditches. Is that something that you are anticipating?
We do not anticipate any shortfall this year.
Okay,
And in fact, if you witness any of that, please call into the office and we'll get someone out to address it. But no, we have full supplies this year. PG&E has got over their hurdles and we hope we're back at 100%.
okay. The last thing I had was let me see how I want to phrase this. I know there's a cost of doing business and then there's a cost of living. And it would be nice to be able to balance those two. And I think the cost of living right now around 3 or 4%. Cost of your business sounds like it's 12+%. And is there some way to balance those two a little more evenly?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think one of the one thing that might not be readily apparent in the rates is that the rates are increasing due to general cost escalation. There's a 4% cost escalation built into the rates. The major driver of the increased rates are large capital projects that have to be completed. So it's construction of one-time big projects.
So that's mainly the driver.
That's mainly the driver. We do see our costs tend to increase around 6% year over year. We only, to be more conservative, only included a 4% escalation cost.
Again, I'd like to thank the board.
Yeah, and we're also financing that over a 30 to 50 year period.
Yeah, that is something I keep hearing, that our or getting asked is our rate model does include a debt issuance to smooth these rate increases over time. And the assumptions in the rate model is, and which is normal, but almost always done, is to do a 30-year bond issuance. That's what the debt service built in the rate model is based on.
Thank you, board members and staff. Joe Fisher, 6591 Curtola Ranch Road, in Director Fowler's district, purchased water in multiple districts. Thank you guys for always, I know that you all know I've been pretty intimately involved in this process and spoke my mind about how I think about a lot of things. And after the last meeting we had with staff and a couple board members down at the Placer County Farm Bureau office, I had a thought that I know has probably crossed some of your desks, but I need to verbalize it. I've been in this district for 22 years now, and I've been at meeting after meeting after meeting where it seems like the board operates in a very reactive approach. That's as an outsider. And I think that it could be articulated that this particular instance is a lookout to the future. This is the plan for water, but it's still putting out fires that were started decades ago. You know, to Ricky's point, water rust eats pipe. I can't remember how it all goes, but it sounded good. It should have been a campaign slogan, Ricky. Maybe it was.
Slogan here.
But what are we doing? Every meeting I've been has been ratepayers. This is where we need you to come forward. And we've taken some money maybe from another entity and moved it around to try to smooth some of these things out. And I can appreciate that. But what about the revenue side of the equation from NID's perspective? Has there been exploration into, I mean, I'm going to go crazy, floating solar panels on lakes or rivers or streams, additional sources of renewable income to this district so that the ratepayers don't have to shoulder the burden every time there's a new need?
Can I just jump on that one real quick?
Thanks, Earl.
Yeah, Brad brought up something here a little while back about power.
Right.
And distribution of power, but that falls underneath the Prop 218. So we're looking at the power, what's it called, agreement?
Power purchase agreement.
Power purchase agreement with PG&E expires in 2032.
Correct.
And right now, we're basically selling power on a standby basis, PG&E. Once that expires, we've asked staff already to look into research. How can we sell that power at the highest possible rate outside of Prop 218? So that we can bring down rates. So I think we're trying to do some proactive stuff here to do that. Jen cringes every time I say it, but there's something out there called dark power. And that is basically putting a facility behind the meter. They also call them data centers or something like that. But no, if we could sell power behind the meter. Or things of that nature. And then to go completely crazy, naming rights.
Yeah, he went crazy
Cut
first.
the video.
Crazy.
No,
Well, so, I mean, I'm not advocating for flock cameras either, by the way. Yeah. Do we get paid when we have to spin our engines backwards to burn off solar generated power from Southern California?
We get paid, it's not Southern California. We get paid for our powerhouse being on, just available, ready to run. We do get called by Cal ISO, which is they manage the grid, to essentially burn power at some points. We're not burning power for Southern California. We're burning power between Nevada and California.
Okay. Have we asked their rates to increase?
Has there what?
Have we asked them for a rate increase? And said you
That
have to get rid
contract's
of.
locked in until 2032.
Right. This has been a thorn in my side is the contract is for, was it 20 years, 30 years, whatever it was.
And it hasn't kept pace with the depreciation of the assets,
No PCI has
correct?
gone on that for the entire time.
Yeah, it's actually a good contract. So there is some concern. So there's a couple of alternatives. We're already meeting internally. Some things we're not going to quite start talking about yet. I do think there is a high potential that we do sell power privately once that contract expires. I wouldn't say dark power, but
I'm looking at revenue.
Right. There's also an option where we can sell market power on the spot market. There is an option where, because we are very integral to PG&E system, that we have another deal The benefit of having a standby contract is that you're not subject to revenue volatility due to water fluctuations.
Okay.
So, for example, when we were down, when we were in outage for the last 2 years because of PG&E's issues, although PG&E caused those issues, if that agreement was on actual power sales, we would have lost piles and piles of money. But because we were on standby, we were technically available. They just couldn't move any water through. So we still got paid. So there's positives and negatives, but we are definitely, that's our biggest revenue concern right now is that power purchase agreement expiring. But we also are looking at several different avenues. We are constantly pushing into some weird territories. Sometimes we have to say, okay, that was too outside the box.
Well, I don't like the normal priorities. So weird is good for me.
Okay, you
Because
like all
normal
the
is
weird
increase
stuff.
our rates, right, Jennifer? To be
Right.
honest, I mean, that's the only option we have. That's the only lever we have to pull, really.
Well, and a huge option, which a lot of people likely won't want to hear, is to do one-time water sales. And we've gotten really close one time. If we had surplus water and we were confident we could make it through a year, you can make $10 million like that. So we look at those things, and we're constantly trying to. A lot of them are very heavy from a regulatory perspective. You're going to sell water, you have to have environmental clearance, you have to get a change in your water rights, you have to go through all of this bureaucracy to get it done. Then there's restrictions on where you can send it, how you send it, what month you send it, how fast you send it, how fast do you have to be out of the delta, or is it delta in excess? Is there room at the pumps? So some of that is very, very complicated. But there's a couple of things we're working on right now for excess revenue. And in fact, that's one of the board's strategic priorities is to look for non-ratepayer revenue. And that's one of the reasons why when people get mad at us about this as well, is we've continued to increase recreation rates over time because they're highly subsidized right now by hydropower. So we've been inching those up. We're looking everywhere we can, but if you have any ideas, let us know.
So to that point, I would also share just a little critique. Also in the big bad room in the back is the state saying pulse flows, no longer mandatory or no longer voluntary, mandatory pulse flows. I really think that this irrigation district would be well served to have a strategic and quality messaging campaign of all the good that it provides this region and this state, including burning excess power off at times. Because it's easy on this hand to say, damn, you're bad, this entity bad. The special class me, honky farmer, who it benefits is the only one. And we become a target always. Well, let's show the good that this district does to a bunch of people. And to your point on recreation, huge threat to the viability of this district is recreation. So I would definitely hope that the value they bring monetarily at least partially offsets the risks, especially with this damn muscle. As an example.
It's very challenging, especially when you take into consideration that 60% of our campground users, they're from out of this area.
And
They're
no
not even-
locals
they don't
camp in
live
our
in the
lakes
county.
because there's no room to, because everyone from out of county does. Yeah, Rich,
Right.
go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, so
My meeting now, I guess, right?
Love it.
I love it when you get up there. Two things. Don't assume that our power purchase agreements haven't kept up. I was shocked when I looked at it. My brother's in not hydro, he's in wind and solar. Yeah, he's put a lot of projects in. He was getting a lot less money than we are. I thought they were averaging about 6 to 12, even higher cents per kilowatt hour. And that's just for being there. The second thing is, recreation, pet peeve of mine. I love providing recreation, and all of us have worked to increase the rates. But I think we're subsidizing about $1.5 million, and that's by FERC. We have to
Is
do
there
it.
any way to benefit a special class there? Like we could say, if you're within 15 miles, there's a period. I experienced this with my family. I wanted to go enjoy one of our lakes in this district. And it was crowded, as you could expect. It was hard to get into. If there was a pass option available to locals at no or small cost early and then opened up it to the public later, I'm sure that's been workshopped, but I also think that helps us in vector control too for things like this muscle, because people in their backyard that just want to go hang out in our district That's one thing, but you've got guys going all over the damn state. It's what they do. And we should make sure that our kids can go swim in our lakes.
There are certain recreation sites, and I didn't get this from our recreation, from a customer. They line up right after midnight to buy campsites because they know that there's that much pressure on that campground. And there's the same people in line, same place every year. And they've been doing it for a long time. But they do get that campground booked throughout the summer with basically local people.
A lot of the challenge is verifying people's addresses.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
And we used to do it in the 80s.
And I'm sure with the
Yeah.
state too, right? If you're going to apply for public funds, the public is going to say, hey, we got to show public benefit. I get all that. I'm sharing to you that my view isn't so narrow to just agricultural raw water that I want to cut loose in a ditch. I'm always trying to increase the scope of understanding, to be sympathetic to what you all have to deal with, but then also try to provide some constructive criticism at times.
We have Adopt a Critter at your place.
What's that?
Adopt a Critter at your place.
Adopt a critter.
I'm looking at naming rights on our lakes.
Yeah.
Sell that to a data center. Brad, you had a question in my meeting? No? Okay, thank you guys.
Thank you, Joe. Thank
Yeah,
you, Joe.
the biggest risk to our future revenue is definitely regulation and continuing in-stream flow requirements. They're not just associated with our new FERC license, but they're also associated. Every time we get turned around, someone's asking for more water. So so less water we have, right? Not only do our customers get shorter, but it's less water you have to sell. So it's a double whammy with it being a revenue hit and a water shortage hit. All right, and with that, I think that was the end of the presentation. Those were all good questions. Was there anything that the board would like to further discuss or that you would like additional information on when we come to the meeting next week?
I have a couple comments, but they're not completely on task as usual. One, I'd like to thank staff for having the meeting here. I appreciate that because 30% of our customers are in Placer County. So I really appreciate that. And someone brought up a point to me the day that I'd like to see if we could implement is that Brad brings it up all the time. Also, we have a 10%, 15% contingency on this project. We spent this much money on this project. Well, are we telling any of our customers how much money we saved? If we have a project that comes in 20,000 under budget, do we have a list of that? We're not telling our customers that, and I think it would be very important to do so because not everything is over budget, but when these items come up on the agenda, it almost appears as if we are over budget every single time. But I don't know if we can get a spreadsheet, a summary so that we can just see track of all our projects.
Yeah, we could certainly do that for our upcoming 2026 capital project update. And we just finally pulled out the actuator at French Dam today.
And all right.
We were fighting with it to even get it to float. It was heavier than the divers thought.
Heavier is not good because oil is lighter than water. So does that mean the cylinders failed?
We're getting in the weeds. Now,
Okay, and how are we doing with setting up a thing on our website for people to sign up to sign Prop 4 letters?
It's not quite set up yet. Part of it is we do need to see, you're working on it, but we also need to see more of the application package to see what we want.
Right. But I meant people that sign up that we can notify them saying we're ready for a Prop 4 letter when you are.
Yep.
Thank you.
All right. Any further board comments?
I have one thing.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
I want to thank the board and staff for having a night meeting. I know there's some resistance to that. I hope we have more. For me, I can get up in the morning, get my farming work done with my targeted grazing business, take a shower, put on a clean shirt and come here and sit in air conditioning in the afternoon. So it is incredibly helpful to get public participation when you have night meetings, not at 9 a.m. So thank you for that. I also wanted to talk a little reminder of history. I've been doing some research about Farm Bureau and how it got started. And interestingly enough, it was the UC system that really started pushing it. There were farm centers and they were Penn Valley, Chicago Park. They were generally scattered about around 1916, and through the UC system, they wanted to find a way to disseminate and gain information through a county level, which could feed to the state. So that's how Farm Bureau kind of got started. And anyone want to guess in Nevada County what the first issue was, what Farm Bureau took up?
Water.
It was the formation of NID.
Yep.
And then we had Wayne stand up and talk about the 1960s and back up. To get that and make NID start, farmers and ranchers mortgaged their farms, took out loans to get them through the initial portions of this to make it happen. I know that most people now think that our forefathers were just racist and didn't contribute anything else, but they had more forethought than anybody that I have ever. I mean, we just don't see that these days. At least I haven't for a long time, probably since the 60s, where people invest and bring something and create something so incredible. Then you had what Wayne was talking about, where the ratepayers again in the 1960s invested in, through taxes, through bonds, in developing hydro to try to offset rates. That's what it was for, to try to offset rates.
They were also out of water, by the way.
Yes.
Yeah, there was.
Sorry to interrupt.
That was
a big
there's
part.
more than one way to skin a
Right,
cat
no,
on
it was a double whammy.
and now after, some pretty heated debates about prices, we're looking at using that revenue for what it was intended for back in the 1960s, to help keep rates to a point where farming can catch up with the inflation rate that happens. As a free market base, farming and agriculture really suffers to try to keep up with everybody else. So I will continue to remind of the history. And it was also interesting, what I found out is in Nevada City and a lot of these towns decided not to opt into buying into the district and making an invest. So now they're set off aside, but they buy our water in huge amounts, which is also interesting. But look who had the foresight. It was the agriculturalists. So we will continue to be here, and we will continue to demand that NID remembers its roots and that we move forward. I'm happy. Oh, is there anyone that has a date that the advisory committee is actually going to come together?
Yeah, earlier I stated once they finish their nominations, I'm going to poll everybody to find out what works best for the committee.
Okay, great. But once again, thank you for the improvement. Thank you for hearing us. And hopefully if it's a night meeting, I'll come to the next one and see what the next board meeting's about. Thank you.
Yeah, just as a point of reminder, unfortunately Carl was around. We had 2 years of fun night meetings at the Plan for Water. So that was good. But also I get this question all the time about who funded hydropower. And if you recall, we went through this when we did the hydropower history not all that long ago. So at that time, there was a treated water class, although it was kind of hokey. Treated water is chlorinated water at that time. And that irrigation folks, there was more treated water folks than irrigation. So that's why we can't use hydropower revenue just to buy down irrigation rates. Okay.
My question is, everybody got their recommendations in?
One for me.
Okay, I
Yeah.
got 2 in. Let's get them in.
Oh, me? Oh, I'm working on it. I've got feelers
till
out
Friday.
to several people, but I don't have commitments back.
By August 6th?
Yes.
She said by Friday.
No, this Friday.
It's
Friday?
this Friday.
Friday.
Yeah,
It's
this Friday.
this Friday.
I'm working on it,
Yeah,
but
let's do
one thing that was a bit of a challenge in our first discussion was, what is the time commitment we're asking for?
Yeah, that's.
And so I was able to get from Jen that, it didn't seem like it was going to be a huge time commitment, because when you're asking busy farmers, which I am doing,
I'm buying the beer.
you're buying the beer.
Don't bring the beer.
Somebody needs to bring pizza.
There's no beer at the district office.
Yeah, anyway, so there was a few pieces like that missing, and Jen filled that in and I was able to respond.
No one
And
told
what
me.
was the answer? I have that question too, but haven't asked it.
Jen, what is the answer for the time commitment we're asking
Right.
for members?
So I am going to guesstimate that it will be around maximum of 6 hours per month for 3 months.
Right.
Unless we're really being very, very productive. And we have lots and lots of great ideas we want to chew through. I've already actually, Mr. Fisher brought up a great idea that I think is something we can, is doable and move the needle. I'd like to hear more of those kind of solutions. Just really depends on what's kind of coming out of it.
So
Please submit by Friday.
Friday.
Yes. And then I'll start pulling, once we get all the names, I'll start making contacts. If you have emails for who you're recommending, that would be excellent. If not, phone number's fine. I will contact them personally. And then we'll start pulling them to figure out dates and times that work best for them. And that's it.
Okay, so to recap, I just want to say Director Stevens pretty much said everything I was going to say, especially the part about being between a rock and a hard place on this subject. And having been here for the entire, for the whole period of time since we had the last rate increase. Looking back, I can say, yeah, we made a mistake. We didn't even out the rates over time. However, we have 3 significant hits in that time when we were not advancing rates. And those are significant today. And we keep saying it, that the main one is the Scotts Flat spillway, but we also have FERC relicensing still hanging over us, and the state proposing to take more water. So I never dreamed that I would be voting on, find myself between a rock and a hard place on so many issues voting as I am on the NID board. But I think I'm passionate about it. Carl, thank you for bringing up the history. You've been reading the book. Have you been reading the book?
I've been doing the internet thing.
Yeah, and it's fascinating. And one of my arguments has been the poor NID district has been undercapitalized its entire life. Okay, and so that's going to be my push. If it sounds harsh, in order to keep this thing going and keep the infrastructure going, we have to invest in it, and we're looking at all avenues. So that's where I stand. I thank you all for coming today. Appreciate your input, and we'll be meeting again on the 6th. Thanks for coming.